Well, thank you very much for joining us in this excellent Rotary Action European Climate and Environment and European Climate Pact Ambassadors initiative. This is a very small scale project with very good people. For what it is, both ESRA and the European Climate Pact are citizens engagement activities, and we are moving forward projects at community level. And for many reasons, ESRA, with our chair, international chair, Alberto Palumbo, is pushing forward activities across the world, joining forces with all the independent Rotary clubs, every club is all kind of to put pressure and to create momentum for real action. Rotary as a strength, we are professionals. Every one of us is an active member of their own community. And what is most important, this is depoliticized. The ecological transition is not a political issue. It is an issue of system engineering, of holistic approaches or solutions that have to be understood, spearheaded, and implemented. And in this same direction, we are looking the occasion for this talk is to discuss later a small project initiated by the Rotary Club Treviso, the first ever in cooperation with the European Climate Pact Secretariat. We were even included with one capacity building activity, which is training for public administrations in green procurement for allowing small cities or mixed-sized cities to start operating in a consistent climate-aligned way. You know, Alejandro, Barbara, you know Barbara much. You see that the agencies in Europe are marking for the emissions, but then every state implements with their own climate transition funds, and there are local climate transition funds. Would you like to explain how it works, how policy design and policy implementation is done in the European member states at the European level?
Yes, finally the European Union has submitted its NDC much later than expected, I know. Maybe a bit less ambition than expected. But this is what we call democracy. We have 27 member states who need to work together. So basically, it's somewhere in between 60% and 70%. There's a lower and a higher end. But I think it is a fantastic compromise after so much negotiation to the 90s. But the way it's actually implemented is that we have an emission trading scheme, and anything outside the emission trading scheme becomes a target for the member states. So this is the effort sharing system that anything is outside of agriculture, waste, transport, and reading, and also PGT gas. So everything within the effort sharing member state target. And here we have CPDR, but also in the European Union we have CPDR, common but differentiated responsibilities, because we have different GDP levels. So for some countries, the NDC, the effort sharing target is lower, for some it's higher, like for Germany it's 50%. For Hungary it's only 18%, much lower because we have lower GDP. But I think it knows us, and the first time ever we are paying attention those who are on the margins, who are marginalized, for example, with the social climate fund, those people who are in energy poverty, and in some countries it can be 30% of the population, even in Europe, who suffer from energy poverty. And the other thing is the just transition mechanism, not the one we are working on here, but in Europe, which is helping those regions in Europe which are going through energy transition. But energy transition is sometimes coupled with by economic and social impact. How we can mitigate the economic and social impact of energy transition. That's what we are working for, and of course many other sources. And the other thing is that we are here to represent European countries with the Climate Pact Ambassadors initiative. I was so happy to find out that there are 13 Climate Pact Ambassadors in Hungary, and 2 of them are my best friends. So it's a good community, and I'm really engaged with the youth, and I will finish with my short introduction. I work a lot with UNICEF, with young people, because we made a huge survey together, and it turned out that 90% of young people are suffering from climate anxiety. 90 of Hungarian youth. And we have to take it seriously. So we are doing a huge campaign with Diana Udjapur, such as the Hungarian Vice Chair of IPCC, and we are really working really hard to try to fight fake news, to bring science as the basis of discussion. And so I'm going to stop here because we still have a lot of things to discuss.
So very well played, the expert speaker. So thank you very much. And we gave me a very good book because we saw Diana this morning on a party organized by she what do you think? We are having this pretty conversation today about youth and government. What do you think? What can you tell us for you to say and the contact point for the
Thank you so much for the amazing comment. First of all, when we talk about the youth, we always think Marcus was there has been youth has been included because like complete someone in the world different. No, the thing is we can always say that we are the leaders for tomorrow. And every day is tomorrow for every day. Like we are the leaders for tomorrow, but we are the leaders for today actually. When we see the entire broad scenario, how this system change. We need to change the system. We need the management of the system. And when we want to change the system, we have to be inside the system. And to be inside the system, to know the system. And for knowing this, you know the jargon, technically. IPCC provides support housing physics, which is not been properly transcribed into a simple language, which can be transformed into a narrative for the youth. That's why we are being working hard just to get a simple text where so basically 1.18 billion people are deprived of clean food right now. You know this, there is a lot of advertisements for the protein causes for cancer and injury. But 4 billion premature deaths every year happen just because of indoor pollution. You don't know that. Right? Women have to walk a long distance just to catch water. Many have to, like, the energy excess. 600, something like a year of 700 million people are deprived of energy. Those are the numbers, actually, what we are talking about. NDCs, I think less than 70 NDCs have been submitted now, and 44% of the NDCs only say that they have included the renewable energy into their NDC target, which is nearly 0.6%, or sorry, 0.6 terawatt hour, that is 600 gigawatts. What is that? Because we have to triple the renewable energy, that is efficiency as well. So those numbers are not exactly where trajectory where we want to go. The next year, right? Before we always talk about we have to test 1.5. Right now we are talking about we have to test 2 degrees. Like if we are increasing the ambition, we also have to increase the ambition by lowering the temperature, not increasing the ambition. So those all the numbers act upon onto our usefulness. Just because we have to live further. And youth is the expert.
Be a practical example of how you work with them.
For example, 1.8 million of youth are actually working in the entire world. Most of the workforce actually work on the ground. And we know, on the practical example, I've been working on the ground as well. How system works, how sustainability works. When you work on the ground, we carry, like, people carry on transformers through, like, approach road. Like, we don't have approach road. We know the policies have to be included for transport, but the policies have to be included for the governance. But the policies have to be included by talking to the stakeholders. Talk to the stakeholders, talk to the people who actually need the solution. So if we have policies where solutions have been provided to them, like the fourth country, but those are not the solutions they want. They want different solutions. Because we always go for one size fit for all problem policy. You know, the policy needs to be different. Different community, different region, different sub-regional community. That's where we come in. That's where the youth comes in. To speak with them. Say, okay, we know what is the problem, guys. Talk to us. We have to speak with them.
Tell us from how you involve the youth from here.
Okay, maybe just a quick introduction. I'm manager of the capacity distribution at the unit of food. And of course, our focus is mostly on helping developing countries with the capacity. And there are several issues that are key principles. One is the country ownership in terms of how countries define what type of capacity that to meet the how better to address them. And with food. The other principle is retention of capacity. We hear a lot about developing countries arguing that they have had enough or this fly out type of consultancy work of capacity building when training workshop takes place or people are trained. It's not bad in essence, but it doesn't help address the issue of retaining capacity. Also, that capacity needs to be built at the institutional level also. Individual capacities are important, but also institutional capacity. When it comes to young people, we do have a program called the Youth Capacity Program, which is actually financed by the government of Italy, that actually tries to, if not directly build the capacity of young people, try to facilitate the exchange of knowledge, but also skills from people to young. So it's not top down, it's engaging young people through the networks and building their capacity according to their needs. So, of course, and then for this capacity, for skills and knowledge to trickle down to the communities. So that's why we work a lot with network, Yango, and everything. So I think that's important because also our motto is you are not recipients, not only recipients of capacity, they're also providers of capacity building. Because of the knowledge they hold already in the local context. So I also would like to maybe just mention that anti-capacity involved in the PCCB network is an initiative by the Parish Commission Capacity Building to bring institutions that are interested in capacity building to do something or exchange of capacity building. It's a voluntary association of institutions, not very not bureaucratic, everyone can join. It's simple to join. And now we have established an energy cluster in cooperation with the lead partner, which is Ecological, and institutional Chinese NGO, international NGO, trying to tap into the resources of the members of the network and the lead partners to focus on what can be done in the enhanced capacities in the energy transition field. So that's something that we're trying to facilitate through this network. And we also have something that we see that's very important also to provide spaces to exchange knowledge and information in capacity building. Like the capacity building talk that we hold every year at a shop, where we not only exchange information, but trying to transmit knowledge, skills, and good practices. Constantly.
It's very fascinating. It's really it's very important. Real skills, and also collaborating with another Chinese redesign organizations. And we're creating perfect solutions. Rotary Club Treviso, for instance, to transfer indications about how the problem. This is actually one of the parts that is going to be supported by the climate plan. And what we feel when we talk to the schools is really that there is the sensation that they don't know how work is going on, kind of population that they have. The idea, for instance, there is a high demand for some actions of big towns, but at the same time, they don't have the technicians yet. And the schools are still not yet equipped to provide that sort of education. So we're trying to map companies with courses Nadia, from the perspective of professional education and engagement as the plan of partner, young plan of partner what can you tell us?
No, I guess that you touched a very good point about how to create a more systemic way to spread knowledge for you, spread capacity building, because we're talking about a lot about youth involvement, but at the same time, what is lacking most of the time is the education part, the transferring of knowledge, the capacity building. And that is a very basic first step that we have to take, because if we're not building on the education, we're not creating awareness, we're not creating the professionals of the future, the decision makers of the future. So starting from the education and implementing school curricula that have ESD, education for sustainable development, at the very base is the next step. We're talking about Italy. I've been working with schools that try to do experimental projects on how ESD and civic education, that's what we call in Italy, can be integrated. And the results were amazing because it was applied to high schools across different backgrounds. There was a scientific one, there was a more technical one, there was a social one, and they started to, in each topic of education, they add, okay, how is this ESD, mathematics, science, literature, how is this ESD? And that begins to integrate the concept, the way that you study, the way that your education is, that it's not a different topic. You're not doing your school curricula and then you have sustainable development, and then you have the green skills. No, you study mathematics, and what is green skills applied to mathematics? It's not separate. It's like we talk about how sustainability
should permeate everything. But still, we treat it like it's something else. I mean, that applies to business, where we do business as usual, and then we do our sustainability back. No way. No way. We have to integrate it, and that is the same for education. So I was very proud to see these kind of projects integrated in Italy, and I think it's something like what the Rotary in Treviso is doing is so necessary. Because what we need to convey before even the capacity building and the grid skill is the way that everything is sustainable, everything is sustainable. So that should be applied to everything. And that was, I mean, completely, that was global. Like I was in Italy and I did that. Then I came to Brazil and I had the privilege to visit also some indigenous communities of Rio Negro and Manaus. And each one of them told me about how fundamental education was. I was in Candeva community of Rio Negro. Young people there, and I was like sort of high school, but it was hybrid because the professor there was not there, was in Manaus. The same teaching that they could not provide on such a small island. So they could have access to that knowledge. They didn't need to go 3 hours with a boat in Manaus every day. That is creating knowledge and making it available for everyone. So that this kind of project should be more and more spread worldwide. Because
That is an element of action. We're doing projects at a distance with organizations. That's also very important. Albert, would you like to give us your final thoughts on this very interesting briefly on how Rotary can further this work here?
Well, first of all, Aria, thank you very much for the invitation to be part of this panel with all these distinguished colleagues here. Rotary is, we are talking about networks. We are a 120-year-old network of 1.4 million Rotarians and actors around the world. And we are in 4,000 communities. I believe that the humanitarian side of this is very important. After all, when we're talking about climate action, it's climate action for people. It's not climate action for nature. Nature is part of what we have around. It's a very it's a human-centered approach. The solution is very interesting. In the concept of sustainability, now, when we're talking about ecological systems, you need to consider the human side of this for the community. We don't have appropriate sidewalks. Okay? I'm having a difficulty going through the sidewalks in some of the cities in Brazil because in a way, even for a person that has some sort of discapacity, so we get challenged. We should not leave anybody behind. So that is one aspect. The other aspect is how do we verify if all what we're doing is accurate activity to what we're committing in this convention for producing points. So we can all have very clear air to water to drink, an environment to enjoy, be part in order to serve our humanity. So having all these concepts that I think we all agree from different perspectives. We're talking about the more perspective. I believe that we need to embark really in 2 or 3 specific actions in which we can pilot and then scale up this for making this EU Climate Pact
Exactly. This way you can introducing emissions and not obviously my things. The negotiators, people are the people are the right to be here. Everyone learns, I believe,